Continuing on today, back in my Barossa kitchen, the pastry from the freezer, ready for blind baking, straight into the oven, 200 degrees. I'm going to do for 10 minutes and then I'm going to turn it down to 180. We always lose temperature when we open oven doors. So 200 for 10 minutes and then we get on to something else. We get on to what I'm putting in this beautiful sour cream pastry base. It's going to be pumpkin and goat's cheese. It could be any vegetable. It could be eggplant that you've cooked like we've cooked before. It could be sweet potato. I just happen to have goat's cheese, but I would have easily used a Persian feta. I would also use a ricotta, anything, or a quark. It's all about a cheese that is very luscious. Pumpkin with olive oil into the oven with a little bit of salt. Now I'm putting it into a high temperature oven, and of course, and that's going to be 230 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes till it has some color. But it's cooked through on the thinnest baking sheet that I have that's been sprayed so it's not going to stick and it's not going to be too difficult to wash up. Right. I've taken the skin off because of the tart. I always judge, can I leave the skin on? I try whenever I can. 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Aren't I lucky to have two ovens? Because with the pastry, I wouldn't want to be putting something else in while the pastry is cooking. It's so hard to keep that temperature. And yet I don't like to cook the pastry case as I explained the day before, because that pastry that has been blind baked should be really lovely and warm to accept the filling. And the filling we're going to start now. Okay, 1 large onion. I just happen to have red onion. Brown onion would be fine. So let me get that on, because cooking the onion really slowly gives this beautiful sweetness to it. And in fact, once it gets started, I'm going to add a little bit of red wine vinegar, because that's that lovely balance with onion. But if you don't have it, leave that out entirely. Just a tablespoon or 2 of oil, and the onion chopped. Now, just chopping an onion is fine. You can make your own decision as to how perfectly you want to chop it, but having it about the same size is, like anything you're cooking, always makes things easier. So I'll wait till the oil is warm. Okay. That is warm now. Just a nice gentle sizzle, because I don't want it to be so hot that it's already cooking the onions as soon as they make contact. So that is just going to tick away, really tick away. Right, let's get the custard ready. Free range eggs. I'm using 3, and I'm going to use cream. And I'm not sure if I have enough cream for this. I'm wanting 180 mils of cream, but I do have some sour cream left over from the pastry, so I'll just make it up with that. Although the sour cream will be a little denser. Okay. Making the custard, nothing more than this. Whisking the eggs, a little bit of salt. Perhaps I'll measure so you know I'm, some cream left for my coffee in the morning. Ooh, just enough. I don't need to use the sour cream after all. I did have enough. So that's the custard made. Just a little bit of attention with the onions. So let's get that out of the way. The onions are going a bit fast. I can hear that as much as anything else. So now I've turned it right down, okay, to the very lowest point. I'm cooking away very slowly, which is exactly what I want. But I'm going to add the red wine vinegar to them, just a tablespoon. And it just, it does something very beautiful with the onions. But I'm going to leave it then cooking. Continuing to cook until they almost melt. Almost. Still on very low, because, and then they get this sweet, if I said sweet sour, I say sour in the most positive way, just by adding that red wine vinegar. But if you don't have it, you could use a squeeze of lemon juice, or you could leave it out entirely. It just gives another dimension, but it's not essential. By making your pastry the day before, this whole process takes about 15 minutes to put it together, and then it just cooks gently in the oven. So, lovely thing to get the family to help you with. This is cooked now, but I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of the marjoram, and I will just turn it off, and there'll be enough grabbing that flavour just as it cools a little. Ready? Okay, here we go. Woo! I might have spilled a bit of oil here. Tomorrow's job? No, today's job. Oh. Okay, that's all it is. If I hadn't measured it, it would have been just a little over a tablespoon. And if you're unsure, measure it out into a small container first. I'm just putting that on for an extra 3-4 minutes because it's at a very high temperature, 230 degrees. I did put a bit of salt, but I didn't put any pepper in. And I'm thinking, though, I'll just check and see if the goat's cheese is salty. That is salty. So I don't need any extra salt. Always, it's that tasting of all the components and deciding what you need. And of course, there's salt and pepper on the table if you're unsure. Shelf. Did I say I love my sliding shelf? Given it's such a hot oven, so important. I'll simply put those there, and yes, just tested on the biggest piece, and I can see they're quite burnished on the bottom. Okay, let's have a look. Yes, it's going to have to go back in, but the really great thing is it hasn't shrunk. And so often the pastry does shrink, but now I have to put it back in for probably another 10 minutes. But I will check because I don't want those edges getting burnt. Right, so what we have, it's lovely and golden, but it's even though it's paler on the base, I can tell it's cooked through. Now all we need to do is to put on the base of the pastry, and this is why it's important to have it warm. These are the onions, the marjoram and the red wine vinegar. And we'll just scatter that around on the base. It's just there as an added flavouring. Then we'll put the pumpkin on the base, lay it over so it's not sticking up too much, although I wouldn't really care if it did. Now this could be, as I said, this could be any other vegetable. It could have been the eggplant, it could have been some carrots that were roasted off with some spices. Now, the goat's cheese, we're going to make little pockets of the goat's cheese all over in between, and then pour the custard on and put it back in the oven, but at a lower temperature now, 160, losing my voice, 165 degrees till the custard sets. Now the custard setting is all about the depth of the tart. That's fairly even. We want to make sure that when this is cooled down, it's being served. There, that was 150 grams, so I've used about 150. I now will just pour the custard in and tuck this down. And it's just, only just enough, and that's what it should be. Every little bit with that spatula. And this simply goes back into the oven now at 165 degrees and let it cook until the custard is set. 20-minute timer, but we have to remember every oven is go. What we know is we just have to, it is set. But that's part and parcel of using that lower temperature, because then it sets so beautifully, and it is, what shall I say, only just cooking the custard. You don't want it to curdle. The higher temperature would curdle it. And whereas you would normally, now I can't help myself, it's got to have some green on it, hasn't it? It is the pumpkin, it's the goat's cheese, and we could have used a whole lot of other things you might have had in your fridge. I'm going to pick it up and put it straight on to, whoops, I've still got the metal plate underneath, and whereas I wouldn't do that normally to go on the table, because of course it's got to be cut, but I just wanted to show you today the finished result, and how the fact that you didn't have to oil the non-stick pan, that you can see that it's set, your pastry is golden but not burnt. It's all about temperature control, and it's all about, I can't wait till it cools a little and I can have a piece myself. Till tomorrow.